If you're thinking to sell your home in Calgary right now, there's one mistake that about 1 in 3 sellers made over the last quarter. And for the average detached home, it's lost them about $40,000. The mistake is starting too high, overpricing. And you've seen the headlines. Homes this year are taking longer to sell than they did last year. That number is real. However, that number is also an average, and averages hide the stat you need to know as a seller today. Here's what the average hides. I've pulled every sold listing all the way from April to July in my database and analyzed it. Just over 8,000 of them. The homes that held their original listing price sold in about 23 days, versus the homes that had to do price drops took about 65 days to sell. So this is all in the same city, same market, but takes about 3 times the wait. And they didn't just wait longer, they also sold for less. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly where that line is between which a property just sits versus actually sells and finds a buyer, and how you can be on the right side of that line even before your property listing goes live. Here's the situation most Calgary sellers are in. You've watched the prices climb through 23 and 24, and you've seen your neighbor's property sell and go in multiple offers. And now you have a price in mind for what your property is worth. But then you look at the market and you look at the news and you see market softening. The days on market is rising. Buyers are pulling back. And you don't know if all of this applies to your home or someone else's. So you figure you'll aim high, leave room to negotiate, and then just see what happens. That instinct right there, that is the biggest trap sellers are falling into right now. I'm Ash. I sell real estate right here in Calgary. And every single week on this channel, we break the data apart so that you're not just stuck looking at headlines. And here's the part of that headline that's actually true. Across the first half of 2026, the typical home took 6 days longer to sell than the same stretch last year. So went up from 32 days to 38 days. That's nearly 19% higher. However, that's an average citywide and tells you nothing about your specific property type. So stay with me, because in about 4 minutes, I'm going to show you that exact stat that decides whether your home sells in 3 weeks or takes 2 months and sits on the market. It's also probably not the number you are expecting. Because that was the market average, using market averages is exactly what kills a listing. So I've split the database into 2 separate groups. The first group is properties that sold at or around the price that they were originally listed at. And then the second group are properties that had to do a price drop to find a buyer eventually. The homes that held their price sold in about 23 days versus the ones that had to do price cut took 65 days. That is the real cost of starting too high. That is sitting on the market nearly 3 times as long. But here's the thing, and this is what truly hurts the sellers. It's not sitting on the market for longer, but it's the price that you end up getting at the end of the road. The homes that held their price ended up selling for 98.8% of their original price, whereas the homes that ended up cutting actually sold 92.4% of their original price. That is a 6.4 gap in points. Let's take the case of a detached home listed at about $700,000. The point difference between holding the price and having to drop the price is about 6 points of price difference. And that results in about a price difference of $42,500 for that pricing strategy. And that is not just off some make-believe price that you had. In fact, it is off the price that you would have ended up selling for or listing for anyway. So you're reaching for a little bit more at the top, but you end up handing off a lot more at the bottom of that. If you want me to run this split on your actual street and actual home type, the link to book a call is in the description below. But here's the part that surprises most people. The obvious pushback is that the properties that I'm comparing are probably just properties that are actually cheaper and had to do the price cuts in weaker segments. That I'm comparing condos to maybe detached homes. So here it is broken out. Detached, semi, townhomes, and apartments. All of them show the exact same gap. Anywhere between 5.5 to just under 7 points. So it's not a mixed effect. It's just what overpricing does. The market overall isn't slow. It's just precise. And buyers are patient. It rewards the right one and punishes the wrong one hard. So why does overpricing cost so much more than just the time it takes to wait on the market for it to sell? It is because of what the buyer sees when they see your listing. Here's the one single thing that I'd want every seller in Calgary to know before listing their home. Buyers don't see your price. They see your days on market. In a market where the typical home is already taking 38 days to sell, when the buyer looks at your listing and sees that it's taking 40, 50, 60 days, they just don't read it as this is a patient seller. They read it as something is wrong and we will maybe take this property for less. The first 2 weeks is the entire game. That's when the most motivated sellers, those that have alerts set up for your exact home type, are actually looking. Price it right and they compete. And competing is what holds it near what your asking price is. Price it high and those exact buyers just skip it, wait, and watch what's going to happen to your listing. By the time you cut, you've already lost the audience that would have paid most for your listing. And now you're just left with buyers that are circling the market trying to find the best deal. That's why the price cut group didn't just wait longer, but actually also ended up selling for lesser, 6 points lesser. So the delay and the discount both are caused by the same thing. And so no, leaving room to negotiate does not put you in advantage. Because what you think is the buffer is the exact thing the buyer uses against you once your listing starts looking stale. So here's the one thing you want to do as a Calgary homeowner if you're planning to list your home in the next couple months. Before you settle on a number, price your home to the last 30 days of sales on your exact property type in your area and not what your neighbor sold for last spring. And the worst one I've seen is not what you paid for it plus what you've put into the home, because not every single dollar spent necessarily translates into buyer value when it comes to valuing your property against other homes. Looking at listed prices around you and old comparisons are all fiction and don't actually make sense when it comes to pricing your home. Sold data is the only thing you should be using. Get your number right on day one and then treat the first 2 weeks as a test. If the showings and offers don't come in, then that's the market telling you that your price is off by more than you think. And the cheapest and fastest fix is a real correction early, not slow drip in prices until you end up reaching the buyer alarming territory where then they just think that something's wrong with your property. Remember, the sellers that netted the most amount at the end of the day aren't the ones that just aimed the highest. They are the ones that were closest to where the market expected them to be on day one. If you're selling in Calgary and want to walk into the market with the right listing price, let's talk. My link's in the description below. Look at the last 30 days of sales of your exact property type on your street and set a price that helps you sell in 3 weeks and around it instead of waiting 3 months and selling far below it. And if you want the data that most sellers only see after they've already made the mistake, then make sure you subscribe to this channel because every week we dissect the data so you can stay ahead of the curve. I pulled Calgary's sold numbers every single month and we break them apart by property type and by community, so you know by what's actually selling and not just stuck looking at headlines. Price it right on day one and the market will meet you there. Thanks again for staying till the end, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, take care.